Hi, this is Nicolas Bell with IONCINEMA, here to review Cruella, the origin story of the villain Cruella de Vil of 101 Dalmatians, the 1956 novel, written by Dodie Smith, which of course was made into the famous classic cartoon in 1961 and then revamped as live action starring Glenn Close in 101 Dalmatians in the 90s and its sequel. Disney is finally releasing the film May 28th, 2021, directed by Craig Gillespie, who was last on hand with I, Tonya, but this is his seventh feature, notably Mr. Woodcock, Lars and the Real Girl, the Fright Night remake, also the television series United States of Terra, starring Toni Collette. This is very much in the wheelhouse. It has a similar vibe of something like I, Tonya, and ultimately pretty impressed at allowing kind of the dark underpinnings of the story to kind of remain while also suggesting that we aren't going to eventually get a Cruella who's killing puppies per se. Emma Stone, she's narrating her own story. We go from her birth up like in the mid-50s to a small stint as a pre-adolescent in 1964, where her mother, played by Emily Beecham of Little Joe, gets killed at a fashion event, and then we fast forward 10 years later to 1974. In that time frame, Estella has built her own little family with Jasper and Horace, played by Joel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser, who, like in I, Tonya, is playing a very similar characterization as comic relief. She gets a job at Liberty of London, and through the usual kind of gimmicky turn of events, becomes introduced to the Baroness, played by Emma Thompson, who is a fashion designer, a high-profile name in London's West End, who takes her on as a designer, and then all kinds of very secrets come out about how the Baroness is related to the fate of what happened, as we see, to Catherine, Estella's mother. Estella notably has a shock of black hair and white hair that she dyes as a young woman to a nice red color as Estella, but we learn that she's created an alter ego for herself known as Cruella, who ends up challenging the Baroness as this alter ego, and of course until everything falls apart. Shot by Nicolas Karakatsanis, the director of photography, who's worked quite a bit with Michael R. Roscom on films like Bullhead and The Drop. Most of this is shot kind of exquisitely, especially considering it's a CGI laden film. There's a beautiful tracking shot early on in Liberty of London, the Harrods-style department store that Estella is working in. But there are other parts where it seemed like maybe some special effects issues marred the film. I like that Gillespie has taken pains to the references of what Cruella de Vil was based on, like Tallulah Bankhead, who we get a snapshot of Tallulah in Hitchcock's Lifeboat, one of her signature cinematic roles. Just the real problem of the film, though, however, is kind of a one-note, caricature, monotonous performance from Emma Thompson, unfortunately. And of course, Emma Thompson is a formidably astounding actress, two-time Oscar winner, but kind of like her characterization in The Late Night starring Mindy Kaling, this tends to grate. This, and I think as the Baroness even more so than the Kaling film, there's no complexity to her performance. She's really, truly all caricature. When I think that the discussions about female mentorship and nature versus nurture and mothers and daughters even could have really been something to talk about as presented in this feature. However, that kind of goes out the wayside. But it would have created a lot of interesting tension if the Baroness had been allowed to be two-faced. Because even Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada, which of course is also a parallel template to this film, they allow her to be human, at least in some scenes, and kind of achieve a little bit of redemption, but that really doesn't happen at all. Emma Thompson as the Baroness is through and through a terrible, horrible person. Also, the CGI of the dogs gets to be a little too obvious / distracting. Costume design is excellent by Jenny Bavin of Mad Max. Really interesting soundtrack, which some of the song selections are distracting, such as using Blondie's One Way or Another, that song came out in 78. It's a little nitpicky. But there are other songs used that don't fit the tone of a certain scene, like some snippets of Nina Simone. There's 2 Tina Turner songs used. It's a bit pastiche-ish, kind of like Sofia Coppola in the way she uses music sometimes, like in Marie Antoinette, which that purposeful palette I think works better than all of that does in Cruella. Emma Stone is, I think, very entertaining as Estella and Cruella. She reminds me a little bit of Selena Kyle as Estella, a little bit of Harley Quinn-ish looking as Cruella, although that evens out by the final scene, I think, where Emma Stone is giving me Elizabeth Scott. Overall, I would give Cruella 3.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.